Et pour conclure cette séance, je vais donner la parole au vice-président Gore, qui, chacun le sait, allie la rigueur de l'analyse, la force de la vision et le talent de la communication. Al, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Minister Fabius, Mr. Former Prime Minister, our Chair, Manuel Pulgar Vidal. Thank you for what your colleagues have done. I will stop my thanks there because Laurent cautioned us to minimize these. I will speak very briefly about questions. First of all, we have faced in our present time two questions about the climate crisis. The first one was, must we change? It looks like it may be difficult to change. We have had 150 to 200 years of seemingly cheap carbon-based energy, which has helped to fuel the rise of a magnificent global civilization. Must we change to other fuel sources? Must we redesign our cities? Must we make our agriculture sustainable and stop deforestation? We heard in the beginning of this session from Dr. Pachauri the latest answers to that question from his colleagues, all of the scientists in the IPCC. And the evidence is indisputable and unequivocal. Yes, we must change. But if their answer was not clear enough, we have additional evidence. Mother Nature has been speaking up very persuasively and powerfully with the climate-related extreme weather events that have caused so much devastation. Listen carefully, not only to the words, but to the hearts of our colleagues from the Philippines. Listen to our colleagues from other places that have already been suffering this devastation. Look at the evidence here in Peru, where 40% of the glaciers upon which 95% of Peruvians depend for water have disappeared within the last 30 years, another 3% disappearing every year. So the answer to the first question, must we change, is clearly yes. The second question is, can we change? Do we have the ability to solve this crisis? And again, at the beginning of this session, we heard from former President Felipe Calderón the unequivocally persuasive answer, yes, we can change. He and Nick Stern and their colleagues on the Global Commission on the Economy and Climate published a magnificent report which outlines exactly how we can change. We heard from Mats Andersson from AP4 and his colleagues in the pension fund and long-term investor industry. They're at a tipping point. We know that in addition to subprime mortgages, we now have subprime carbon assets, and investors are shifting out of them. You know, this crisis is also an opportunity, and the investors and the business leaders understand that as well. Paul Polman at Unilever, who has been such a powerful voice. Peter Baker told us earlier from the WBCSD, and other business leaders have told us. And if their answer to the question, can we change, was not powerful enough, we also have additional witnesses to that answer. The technology developers in this world have found ways to bring the cost of solar electricity down to at or below the grid parity price in 79 countries already, and within 6 years, more than 80% of the world's people will live in regions where photovoltaic electricity is as cheap or cheaper than electricity from other sources. The returns from investments in energy efficiency are even more dramatic. Wind energy, sustainable agriculture. We have the means to change. So the answer to that second question, can we change, is clearly yes. That is one of the reasons why China and the United States joined together to chart a path forward. What will our path forward be? Christiana Figueres, who has seemingly limitless energy and drive in running this process. Thank you so much, Christiana. You will be thanked formally at the conclusion of this session, but God bless you. Christiana began these meetings in Lima with a beautiful and poetic description of the Nazca lines, and she described some of the figures. You know, they are hundreds of meters long. They're to be found 400 kilometers south of this city. How can you see them? This is a mystery that many people have contemplated, because when you are on the ground near them, you cannot understand what the designer of these figures is doing. But from the air, indeed from space, the outlines of the images are crystal clear. Actually, Peruvians know that if you go to the peaks of some nearby foothills, you can also see the designs. We are designing the future of humankind in this United Nations process, here in Lima, and then a year from now in Paris. In order to see the design that we need to draw, the pathways we need to take, we need to move back, not just in distance, but in time. We can see what we should be drawing with our moral imagination by adopting a point of view not from a nearby peak, but from the standpoint of the future. Because, mark my words and the words of others who understand this and have said it very clearly, the day will come, not long from now, when our children's generation will ask one of two questions about what we are doing here. And the question they ask will depend upon the world that they inherit. If they find themselves in a world that is being destroyed by stronger super typhoons and hurricanes and cyclones and downpours and floods and mudslides and deeper droughts that ravage agriculture, if they live in a world that is disrupted by the flows of hundreds of millions of climate refugees, if they see all around them political disruption and failures of governance, if they see the other consequences of this horrific climate crisis that the scientists have told us we must avoid, they would be justified in asking of us, back through the mists of time, this question: what were you thinking? Why didn't you act? But if they live in a world that is marked by a spirit of renewal, that is motivated by the spirit of Lima that we have felt here, if they see millions of jobs being created in renewable energy and efficiency and sustainable forestry and agriculture, architecture and design, and the rebuilding and retrofitting of buildings and cities and communities, if they see a spirit of renewal and feel hope in their hearts and look at the faces of their own children and feel justified in telling them with joy that their future will be brighter still, I want them to look back at us and ask the question: how did you find the moral courage to shake off the lethargy, to break free of the chains of the past, to lift your sights and draw the design of a future that we can accomplish? And part of the answer will be that in Lima, Peru, in December of 2014, the design was drawn for a meeting in Paris 1 year later, where the peoples of the nations of the world came together and said, yes, we must, yes, we can, and yes, we will. Gracias.